Hello and welcome to the show. Now, I think Forza 6 has got a really rather good track list. I think it's great that we've got, Watkins Glen, Brands Hatch, Monza, Lime Rock have all been brought into the Forza series. They are great tracks to go racing around. And while, yes, we did get the fictional Rio circuit, I suspect in future, Forza is going to be likely to going along the lines of having these real-world, licensed tracks and so on. That's certainly not a bad thing, as we often want to be taking our favourite supercars, our favourite race cars around the venues that we watch motorsport on, whether it be in TV or whether we go and visit the tracks themselves. However, there have been some really great fictional tracks over the years appearing in Forza games, so I wanted to go and take a look at some of my favourites. I am going to start by talking about Fujimi, because if I don't mention this at any point, there is going to be much shouting and anger. I'll be honest, I never really cared for this track. I really didn't give a crap when it didn't appear in Forza 5 or 6, because I just don't particularly like this place. The most interesting thing certainly you can do at Fujimi is take the cars to the top of the mountain, hold in the clutch and race them down soapbox style. That is a huge amount of fun. You can get some fantastic racing doing that. Driving this circuit, normally it's just not a place I ever really wanted to go. It kind of felt a little bit weird with certainly further around the course. It's incredibly wide. It's almost stupidly wide. There are some okay sections of the track, but I don't know, I just never really liked it, and it was never as good as the Rally di Positano circuit. This is the full layout that we saw in Forza 3, about 8 miles long. This is a challenging circuit to drive around. It was to me, this was a far more interesting place to take a car testing than Fujimi. If I wanted to go for a drive at a long circuit, I would much rather go here. It's not a particularly fast circuit around here. There are a couple of places where you will get the cars up to some serious speed, and then it gets a little scary. It's a lot of corners, one corner after the other. They're relatively low speed sections. We get these little straights in between, but then you've got to get back on the brakes again, or you're going to be over a crest to get the car in the air. You'll probably be in the air 3 or 4 times easily a lap, and that's with you being, that was with me at least, being slightly cowardly because I couldn't remember the circuit very well. There's lots of times the car will be coming across a crest. There we go, get a little bit of airtime in the Corvette. I think this was a much more exciting, a much more interesting place to go driving with a car. Both tracks useless for racing because of their hugely long lap times and so on. Weren't ideal tracks for actual racing, but as far as a place to go and have fun with a car, I'd much rather have this track. As this is a very fast part of the circuit that I was incredibly cowardly on, because again we've got another huge break, get the car stopped for a rather tight hairpin. But on to my top 10 of the actual proper race tracks. We start with the Sedona Raceway. Now this is only for the short circuit. I don't like the full layout of Sedona. The way the track joins and leaves the oval, I never liked. I don't know, it just didn't feel quite right. I never really liked that element of the track. But this short circuit, fantastic fun. Really, really great circuit. After turn 1, we've got this run towards an incredibly tricky high-speed chicane. In the grippier cars, it'll often be flat out through here. You don't actually see, for this top part, you don't actually see where you're going particularly well. It's kind of turn in and hope that you've had enough grip, that you've given it enough brakes if the car needs to, and that you've got the line correct across the top of the hill. We then run down this straight towards the next corner. Incredibly tough place to overtake here at Sedona. That turn we've just gone round, you would think is a decent overtaking opportunity. Often if you try and dive up the inside, you take such a shallow line that you end up being quite slow off the corner. Cars will often hold it around the outsides of these turns. Again, this seemingly never-ending corner, incredibly tough to get passes done. And then we have the scariest corner of the lot of them. There's another high-speed chicane, this one, where you have very little margin for error. If you're not brave enough through here, it's very easy to get overtaken by someone who is. But if you're too brave, you run wide on the exit, or you kind of end up trying to cut the second part of the chicane, you'll hit the sticky grass, and then your car will be stopped dead in its tracks, and you'll lose a lot of positions. So trying to judge that chicane is, great fun. When you get it right, it is amazing through that part, but get it wrong, you're in a lot of trouble. Turn 1 is also a pretty interesting kind of hairpin, a banked hairpin though. Again, is probably your best overtaking spot on the track. Still not particularly easy though, around Sedona. In 9th, we go to Sunset Peninsula Raceway, probably best known for me being able to roll pretty much every car around here. The curbs are vicious for launching cars onto their side and for going over, but as an actual racetrack, I really do quite like this place. I think it's a fantastic circuit to go racing cars around. This chicane, flat out, a lot of vehicles, that is the curb that you really have to be careful about. The Monaro was up on two wheels. This is perhaps the only corner that's kind of a little bit... it's almost kind of a little bit out of sync. The rest of the track is very, very flowing. That turn is a little bit strange, but probably your best overtaking spot on the track. This next part, flat out through that chicane again, you can get the car often up onto to two wheels. This part of the track very, very wide. Again, it's a decent straight followed by a fairly heavy braking zone. You'd think a sensible overtaking position. While you certainly can get passes done, often you dive too much on the inside. Again, you're taking a shallow line, you'll be slow off the corner. This next part of the corners kind of all flow into one another as we head down this long back straight, and then probably, certainly to me, the most important corner on the track, this final chicane. You want to make sure you can get as good a run out onto the banking as you possibly can. So yeah, I tend to brake a little bit early so I can get a nice run onto this banked circuit as we run now around the oval. I really like driving around this track. I'm sure most people probably don't particularly think about this circuit now that we've got like Daytona and so on, but I think it was a great circuit, certainly for the power cars. It was a good circuit to use them at, and it was just a nice place to go and race around a lap. I also love the way that it comes off the oval here. It's such a high-speed corner down here. You brake a little, or you turn in a little too soon, you hit the wall on the inside, your race is over. Turn in a little too late because you're going so quickly, you got to run wide, probably hit a wall, and your race is over as well. And then we've got this double apex corner as well for sort of turn 2 and 3. I really like Sunset as an actual racetrack, aside from all of the rolling that went on there. In 8th place, Maple Valley, one of the ultimate hot lapping circuits, in all honesty. As a racetrack, there's so little braking around here that overtaking was stupidly tough. But as a hot lapping circuit, this place is incredible. It's a really, really flowing circuit around here. You very rarely need to go on the brakes for very long around the track, especially in a high grip car like this Jaguar race car. Once I've got it out of turn 1 there, I don't brake all the way. We're going down this straight now. It's flat out as we're going over bumps and crests. A curb on the inside there has rolled a few vehicles in its time, and it's a little bit on the brakes for this next corner, but again, it's only a small braking zone. You would think, sometimes you can sneak up the inside down there, but a lot of the cars, you don't have very long to get brakings done. Then we're around this kind of longish hairpin. That's probably your best overtaking spot on the track, in all honesty, if you can get up the inside, but even then can be a little bit dodgy. And after that corner, it can often be flat out for the rest of the entire lap as you run up the hill. There's a little lift in the Jag. You've got to kind of... there's another blind corner at the top of the hill here. You've got to turn in and hope that you've got the line right. But in the high grip cars, or the slightly slower, lower class of car, you will often be flat out now for the rest of the lap as we run through another high-speed chicane with some nasty curbs. I've seen many cars end up in trouble across there. I get the line slightly wrong, a little bit rusty at this track, turning a bit too soon in the Jaguar, but we're flat out all the way down the hill, and again, flat out through this final corner. It's a great turn, but we'll punish you if you get it wrong, and then we're across the line back towards this long first corner. I run a little bit wide on that as well. It's a great hot lapping track. For racing is okay, but overtaking is really tough. We go from Maple Valley to the complete polar opposite of the Depositano circuit. This is the short layout from Forza 4. As I said, this is a complete and utter opposite of Maple Valley. It is a track where you get pretty much no time to rest around here. There are two... This is the second longest straight on the track. That's how it is, one corner after the other. It's not a particularly fast circuit. You're not going to be getting very high speeds around here. There are a couple, though, of faster areas of the track where it's only small dabs on the brake that you've got to try and get cars, even like this TVR. Try and get cars like these through, so it can get quite scary, and those faster bits of the circuit are on the cobblestone as we run down here. There's not a huge amount of grip through this part of the track, and you've got walls either side of you as the TVR is doing what TVRs do best and sliding around a little bit up towards this final corner. And then probably the longest straight is down here across the start finish line, and then we're instantly back into the corners. This first section is also phenomenal, going through between the walls, bouncing the cars across the curbs. It can be taken flat out in some cars. Most cars I think can take it flat out, but then you've got to get it stopped to try and get it into this tight twisty tunnel section. It's a track to go racing with. Again, it's a very tough place to get any overtakes done, because it's just constantly one corner after the other. You never really get any straights. There's no real big braking zones to try and get overtaking maneuvers done, so you have to get brave if you're going to want to get passes done around this track. It's a real challenge to race cars around here. Admittedly, for the most part, it's slightly slower speeds because you just simply can't get them up to any high speeds. But yeah, it is a real great challenge racing cars around there. Into 6th place, we have the Camino Circuit. I really like this track. I thought this was a great circuit. People tended not to particularly like it being ran in versus community and so on, but I thought this was a fantastic circuit to go racing around. Much more along the lines of Maple Valley, this one. Lots of very fast flowing corners. I love the scenery as well. Fantastic looking circuit as you run down this very high speed downhill section into a nice big banked sort of hairpin part. Probably the best bet for an overtake is to dive up the inside of this hairpin, but trying to make sure that you get it all right is, or can at least, be a little bit on the tricky side. We then run up the hill towards a completely blind corner. With the faster cars, you'll often be braking before you even see the corner that you were braking for. Many a car has ended up in the fence on the outside there that have just carried far too much speed on their way in. The higher grip cars will be flat out through this part of the track with a nasty curb on the inside, and I love the change of camber from side to side. Down there, we then run up a steep hill towards the final turn. You may see a few cars, high-speed cars, getting airborne across that little jump. Is around the final turn. Again, a decent overtaking spot, that final corner, though. I've often seen cars hold it around the outside, which will put them on the inside for this very high-speed first corner through here. Again, we're only talking small dabs on the brake for most of the track. So yeah, overtaking is a little difficult around here, but I really like driving around this Camino Circuit, so I was definitely sad to not see this one in future Forza games. Up into 5th, we go to Forza 1 for the Alpine Ring, a track that I had kind of pretty much forgotten about, really. This is certainly the first part of the track. It's kind of more conventional race circuit. We have a very long kind of start-finish straight into a relatively tight sort of first corner. Then we weave through a couple of these high-speed, I say high-speed turns. You don't really, certainly in a car like this Subaru, you don't really think about them even being turns. Then you've got a good overtaking opportunity into this next relatively tight hairpin. Again, I'm loving these banked hairpins you can really chuck the car into. Then it goes from these kind of normal circuits to these really high-speed, massive elevation changes around here. You're flat out through these next chicanes, or I say chicanes, these next kind of kinks that go from side to side, and then we're back to a sensible overtaking opportunity again in towards this final double-apexed corner. It's it's kind of got best of both worlds. We've got some high-speed quick change of direction, some elevation change as well, but there's still plenty of places to get sensible overtakes done. And I love this final corner as well. Kind of like a mini corkscrew, completely flat. You just dive the car down. When you're racing, you don't really see where you're aiming for either, so it's kind of a case of chuck the car down there and hope you haven't ended up on the grass. Yeah, I really like the mixture of, you've got some sensible high-speed stuff, decent places to get passes done, along with the tight, or the twisty, I shouldn't say tight, the twisty high-speed stuff as well. Into 4th, the Blue Mountain. This, again from Forza 1, takes inspiration, shall we say, from Bathurst, most definitely. You can definitely see parts of Bathurst around this track, but I think it's actually perhaps a little more challenging than Bathurst in some ways, because after the sort of the start-finish straight and that first long straight, it is one corner after the other. We've got these constant corners going on around here as you weave your way through the mountain, and I'd again forgotten just how good this track was going back to playing it on Forza 1, and even me not being particularly experienced at this track. It was a great place to just drive this Viper around for a few laps. We've got some high-speed stuff there as I really push my luck with the car running a little bit wide, and then we kind of tighten up to this next section. The circuit itself, on the most part, it's a relatively decent width, so actual kind of proper racing action would work relatively well, does work relatively well around here. As we go again now from these higher speed stuffs, there's some interesting elevation change. Not quite as crazy elevation changes as you get at the actual Bathurst circuit, but I think it works quite well down here as you kind of drop your way through these corners. It's not as extreme, anywhere near as extreme as the Bathurst circuit, but it makes up for it by having a lot more corners for the car to navigate through. And you'll have one corner that's quite a slow, maybe a second gear corner, then you'll speed up to third. Some of these are almost flat out turns, and then you again back down towards a slower speed corner such as this one that you want to try and get the car through. And then the best bit though is still to come. Once you've wiggled your way through the top of the course, you come out and you start down back on this straight. I love this camera shot down here. You can see just the elevation changes down this straight, but the version of the chase on here is a lot quicker down this part of the course. It's a dab on the brakes and kind of chuck the car in. The Viper's up on two wheels across it. It's pretty much a rally jump down here that's taken almost flat out. It's a really rather interesting corner around the final turn, back to kind of normality almost across the line. Yeah, the Blue Mountain Circuit is a good fun track to go racing around. In third, well, this was always going to be near the top, the Iberian Circuit from Forza 4. I absolutely love this track. It is an incredible track to drive around. It's kind of quite a lot like Lime Rock, only done the other way around. I didn't quite realise just how much it was like Lime Rock until I drove it in Forza 6. But this track it's a glorious place to race. There is very little in the way of braking done around this circuit as you run through this first part. After you've got the car stopped for the first corner, you don't brake again until after the crest up here. This is a nasty bugger of a corner to get right. You can chuck the car in with quite a lot of speed, but it takes a while to get the hang, to get the confidence to chuck the cars in. Then we've got this quadruple apex corner that you go around again. High grip cars, you will be flat out through here, and this Nissan little lift to the throttle to try and get it right up towards this final corner, and then again you're flat out all the way down the main straight. Incredibly tough to get overtakes done around this track because it's another one where you spend very, very little time on the brakes. Turn one, by far your best opportunity, but you're often braking for this first corner. Again, it's another corner, you'll be braking before you see it because you kind of go uphill towards it. You'll be braking often before you get to the hill, especially with the faster cars. It's just a lovely, lovely track to go racing around. I love this part of the circuit as well. As you run downhill through this part and then up over the crest, you can get in a lot of trouble. Seeing many a car have accidents, get twitchy down the bottom or get twitchy on the landing. It is often a jump, depending on how fast your car is going. Cars get twitchy on the landing there, can often get fired off into the walls. Quite a vicious, for what is a very, very short track, quite a vicious one. Listen, quite a hard circuit to get right, especially with this quadruple apexed corner. There's quite a faff getting it around there in this final turn, that after many years of racing, I still don't know the best way to get it out of that final corner. It is, a little bit of a bugger to learn this track, but once you have got the hang of it, once you can fly around this circuit, it's an incredibly rewarding track to get a lap of it very, very quickly. A lovely, lovely flowing circuit. Tough to race, tough to overtake cars around here, but yeah, I really do quite like the Iberian Circuit. In second, we're back to Forza 1 for the Tokyo Street Circuit. Now, I am a big fan of street circuits, although street circuits often can be very tough places to get overtakes and so on. They often can be quite slow as well. This Tokyo one is not at all. This is the first corner. It is a narrow gap through some walls towards and then after that, which is almost flat out corner, you are really hard on the brakes for a hairpin. It's a really interesting mix of some incredibly high-speed stuff and then very slow-speed, narrow street circuit bits, which I find fascinating. And it's one of these circuits that is so rewarding when you've got the hang of it, when you can run a clean lap around this circuit, because it is such an interesting mix of, this is a really quite narrow part of street circuit down here. And then it opens up in a minute, once we get out of this, again, we're talking narrow, tight, twisty chicanes, and then it opens up to a long, long straight down here as you curve through the tunnels, and there are actually some decent overtaking spots as well around this track. This one here probably being the biggest one on the track. You're running down this long, straight, heavy braking zone here into one of the tightest hairpins on the track. This is a really nasty bugger of a corner. You'll often go on the brakes and be thinking I've braked far, far too early, but no, you really do need to brake very early. It's a really nasty, nasty tight hairpin. Again, we have these quick changes of direction, and then we're back on another decent-sized straight. And at the end of the straight is a hard braking zone for the next corner. Again, another decent overtaking place. So this is a really interesting mix of tight technical street circuit with some decent overtaking spots, and then the final part of this track, it suddenly speeds up. You've got these high-speed changes of direction in between the barriers in this final corner. That is such a bugger of a turn, flat out in this Porsche through there, but you get things wrong, you're going to clonk the wall at really high speeds. It's a lovely change of direction, though, through there, and then the roller coaster starts all over again with that high speed in between the barriers, and a sudden jump on the brakes. Is also a little bit of a crest as well down there. Not sure you quite get airtime, but yeah, it's a real interesting mix of a track. But at the top of this list is probably not going to come as a huge surprise to those of you that have watched my videos regularly. It is the New York Circuit from Forza 3, the one with the chicanes. This is quite possibly my favourite track of all time from any game ever. The reason being, you want to be quick around this track, you have got to be 100% committed. This first chicane is a tiny lift on the throttle, and you weave it millimetres to spare through the tyre bundles, then big stop towards this double apexed hairpin. You try and get the car out. Often, more powerful cars are going to be sliding. You're coming from such a low speed corner. Again, another chicane flat out in the V8 supercar. You're bouncing from curb to curb up towards the nastiest of all of them. It's a relatively decent stomp on the brakes to get it slowed for the first part, then straight on the power. You're on the power before you can really see where you're going, and you've got millimetres to spare the entire time. Relatively normal corners to finish the lap here. I do quite like you can carry a lot of speed, the wideness of that particular corner. It's the only time you'll carry speed around this track. Then into the interesting roundabout. It's probably the only track I've ever driven with a roundabout on it to navigate. Never been particularly good at the roundabout turn. And then we're flat out again through another chicane, simplest of all of the chicanes, towards the line. It is such a challenge of driver skill, because you've got to position the car millimetre perfect lap after lap, and at such huge speeds. You don't normally have so much speed through such narrow chicanes on a racetrack, but around here that's what you've got to deal with. You've got to do it lap after lap if you're doing a longer race. Crashes are often common and quite spectacular because of the speeds that you are taking. You turn in that little bit too soon, you don't brake soon enough. All it takes is a mile an hour too fast into one of these chicanes. You clip a tyre bundle at 120 and you're probably going on your roof even. It's an incredible challenge. No other track is quite like the challenge of New York, with the amount of speed you are trying to carry through such narrow gaps. There is no margin for error. Yes, you can be, that little bit more cautious, but then you lose such a huge amount of lap time. That's why you need such ridiculous commitment to get a car quickly around this track, and that's why I love the New York Circuit. It's very, very tough to overtake around here because the main braking bits, the gates through the tyre bundles, are so bloody narrow. But as a challenge, there is no other track quite like New York. It is such a phenomenal place. It's the most rewarding place to drive a fast lap around because of the commitment you have to have through ridiculously high-speed chicanes where there is absolutely no room for error whatsoever. It's an absolutely phenomenal track. I doubt it will ever happen, but I would love to see it come back in future Forza games, because it is such a phenomenal challenge to race cars quickly around. It is an absolutely awesome track to go driving around. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.